What we talk? Oh,
Oh no. Well, this is going to start weird anyway. So I'm Caleb, and
that's Keith.
Keith is an icon because what he did, you see, it's cold in Minnesota, and he drove his car upside down into a ditch. So he's waiting for it to get fixed. Whether or not that's actually what happened, I control the narrative. And joining me, as always, as sometimes, is
Jack.
all right. So I'd like to start this
Disembodied voices.
I'd like to start this episode off by saying that we did not bully a Power Ranger to death.
No, that is not
That's
us.
that was
Whoa.
not us, and that was so okay. So as you guys know, we record these in advance. That episode that came out on Sunday, we had recorded like Wednesday afternoon. I had no idea that the Green Ranger was going to go and commit suicide, and that actually made me sad because he was my favorite Ranger growing up. So we had nothing to do with that. Categorically and empirically, I'm stating I, and me especially, I had nothing to do with that. Stop sending me DMs about the Green Ranger.
It was
I'm sorry.
very yeah. I got a lot. I woke up and I got the news. I was like, oh, that's sad. And then I just I didn't think about it for like 20 minutes. And then out of nowhere, I get a DM of like, bro, what the fuck? That's kind of rough. And I'm like, what? Oh God, no! Like immediate panic.
I had a comment on my Facebook post where someone was like, "Where were your whereabouts last night from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m.?" And I'm at Gunsight teaching the revolver roundup. And I was like, I was in my friggin' hotel. Where else would I be? No idea, because I didn't,
Right? Like,
I didn't see the news or anything like that. So anyway, uh, our bad. Like for real, that was unfortunate timing.
hearts go out to his family.
Yeah, for real. I like
That
that's
guy was an
just
icon growing up.
he really was. Like, I mean, everybody our age loved that show. And obviously the Green Ranger, eventually the White Ranger was the coolest Ranger. Also I did I was reading a news article about it, and they wrote out his title as White Power Ranger, and I'm like, where you put the emphasis on
it's
power in
it's a
that,
very
it's tough.
it was a different time.
It was a different.
It was a very different time.
It really it was the 90s, guys. All right. It was the 90s using recut footage of a completely different Japanese TV show for the
Yeah,
first
it's kind
season.
of amazing what they managed to pull off, but the action scenes are not American at
No,
all.
they're yeah. I really enjoy how they connected like teenagers acting to like random kicking from a different show. So
The
again,
Yellow Ranger in the action scenes is not a chick, like
I
at all.
I
It's
did
very
not know
clearly a
that.
dude.
Again, I so Power Rangers, again, original Power Rangers is one of those shows that I will not go back and rewatch because I do not want to spoil the cherished memories that I have of it.
Um, so I lived with a guy. This will be a really weird tangent, but who is a super fan of the Japanese show. Believe it
Hmm.
or not, I've lived with a couple of weebs. Um, and me and him have had some conversations, and he is like, it's if you watch the American stuff as an adult, you don't watch it and think like, oh, the storyline held up. What you notice as an adult is that it is two different shows,
Mm-hmm.
and how well they took two different shows and combined them to produce a product that American audiences could connect with. So you don't really watch it and say like, what great acting. You watch it and go, wow, they really did this. They pulled it off. And as an adult, you can see it, but as a kid, you had no idea.
Also, this has been a tough week for childhood icons dying when I think about it, because Kevin Conroy passed away as well.
The voice
That
of
one,
Batman.
the Green Ranger was upsetting. Kevin Conroy was Kevin for my generation, like the millennial generation. If you ask us who our Batman was, it's not Christian Bale. It's not what's his name with the suit where he couldn't turn his neck. Uh, oh my God, I'm blank. Michael Keaton.
Bale couldn't turn his neck in his suit.
Yeah, in the first one. Neither could Michael.
Oh,
Michael Keaton couldn't even move.
Yeah, Keaton's action scenes are just like somebody else's arms in Batman gloves, like coming
Yeah.
up and hitting people.
But that was our Batman was Kevin Conroy, and he was a cartoon, but that voice will be I mean, it's iconic, and there's no other way to put it. And his death was genuinely upsetting for me because, again, Batman died. There's no other way to explain that.
I don't know if you saw it, but he volunteered to work at a soup kitchen during 9/11 that was feeding firefighters.
I didn't know he did that. That just proves
So
that Kevin Conroy, in addition to
yeah,
being Batman, is actually a good person.
so he's sitting there like working, like making food for these people who are now well into the rescue efforts and like trying to put something together out of all that madness. And the guy across from him is like, "Do I know you?" And he's like, "I'm an actor." And he's like, "Well, what have you been in?" He goes, "It's all voice stuff." And he goes, "Was there anything I'd know?" And he goes, "Yeah, I do the voice of Batman." Oh, it was you. And he
Right.
goes out and he's like, "You guys wouldn't believe who's cooking your food back here. It's Batman." And they're like, "Prove it." And like Conroy does the voice and is like, "This is just," and all the guys lose their mind. And Conroy talked about that. And I was like, wow. Not only childhood icon, but good person.
One of my favorite things that he did late in life is he would do voiceovers on generally on what were basically fan created animated scenes from like the Bale movies. And he would do the voiceover for Batman on that. And I'm sure he got paid, but that's the sort of thing where you don't have to do that when you're Kevin Conroy. And he's like, "No, this seems cool. I'm Batman." And then he did the voice, and they're all really fantastic. So, this has been
And that
a
is a show that absolutely, to this day, holds up.
unbelievably well.
If you have never watched the Batman animated series, it is such a fantastic show. It's well written, it's well directed. Some of your iconic Batman villains, the Rogues Gallery, were made by that show. Harley Quinn did not exist until that show. She is a product of that show.
Yeah.
I think Clayface is a product of that show. Two-Face existed, but I think they did some stuff with him. I'm not really sure. I don't want to speak too much, but I know they changed.
The
I think
coin
yeah.
was a product of that show. The constant flipping of the coin to make
Uh
decisions and things like that, product of that show. Also, the other thing that show produced was what is largely one of the most iconic interpretations of the Joker, voiced by none other than Mark fucking Hamill.
if
Like,
Hamill wasn't Luke Skywalker,
he would be
we
known
would
as the
only
Joker.
known as the Joker. And I'll tell
Yes.
you, I think the Joker's is better role.
I mean, the Joker's a much more complex role, especially as a voice actor. And one of the things about Conroy and Hamill, especially, is that even in animated projects outside of the Batman animated series continuity, they still voiced Batman and the Joker for in many, many other projects because those voices were so connected to that sort of animated idea of the character. So yeah, it was a tough week for our childhood heroes, which brings me to the topic of this episode, which is nostalgia, specifically dumb gun nostalgia. And maybe we just keep talking about Batman for another 20 minutes. But one of the things no, but speaking of, one of the things that I always loved about that Batman animated series was because the aesthetic was this sort of weird, like you couldn't place the time period that it was set in,
No,
and that was intentional because it allowed them to do like this crazy art deco vibe, and everybody's got Tommy guns and stuff like that, but Batman also has computers and heat-seeking missiles and shit. Like,
I think it really goes to
There
show.
are villains with straight up lasers in that. Like,
Yeah, there's a really great episode where the Penguin steals an attack chopper,
oh
and
yeah.
it's one of my all-time favorite episodes because it was very like trying to solve the problem of how do you deal with this guy who's stolen an attack chopper. And the attack chopper looked cool. It didn't look like an Apache. It looked more like a Sikorsky,
Mm-hmm.
big bodied thing that they had just like strapped these big rocket gun pods to. And in the middle of the rotor blades was a turret with laser rifles in it.
Oh yeah. Also,
And
I want a helicopter that has a rotor blade turret with lasers in it. That sounds
yeah,
dope.
big improvement on the Apache one.
Another lovely robot sound from the disembodied voice of Keith.
My other so you get the Tommy guns, you get the nameless 1911 variations that every bad guy would whip out, but Jim Gordon
K-frame
still
baby.
carry big K-frame revolver.
Lots of characters had. I will say this too. One of the great things about that show was they did a spin-off comic book called The Batman Adventures, which lasted for 3 years, 36 issues. I have all of them. I still have all of them because, interestingly, the first comic book I bought was one of those. And I've talked about this before on other shows, but there's an issue, number 15, that's all about Commissioner Gordon. And he's got a revolver in it, and he says some stone cold shit to some guys where they're like, "What are you gonna? You can't get us all." And he's like, "Well, seeing as this is a revolver, and considering my advanced age, I can only get the first 3 of you that move. Who's it gonna be?" And I'm like 12 reading this, and I'm like, "That's the tightest shit I've ever read."
He does just he would just say things that were just like, whoa. And Jim Gordon's always been a beast.
In that Batman Adventures, Batman the Animated Series continuity, Jim Gordon's an ex-Green Beret. That is an established line of continuity, that Jim Gordon, Green Beret. Also, in my head, the Jim Gordon in the new Batman movie with the sparkly vampire boy is actually
also
great movie. Is Felix Leiter, by the way.
Yes, agreed.
He got tired of CIAing and decided to go into a new identity as a cop.
Also, great moment in that for the. I really hate people who can't accept the fact that Batman doesn't shoot people. Just get over it, guys. I really did appreciate when him and Gordon go into the mental asylum. He's like, "No guns," and Jim's like, No, I don't know who you're talking to, but it's not me, white boy.
Yeah,
calm down.
I stay strapped.
Yeah, you can ease up with that nonsense right there. Also, the fact that Batman abandons Jim Gordon in a 7-1 gunfight, and he's like, "You got this, buddy."
It's like, wait, fuck you,
right?
Which
Jim
actually
Gordon making the Smith & Wesson M&P cool again.
Oh man, I mean, that's difficult to do. Not even Hilton Yam could make the Smith & Wesson M&P cool again. But on that note, we're gonna keep talking about Batman because we're just gonna, we're gonna do the guns of Batman. Here we go. So we've done the animated series. Before we move on, though, we do have to discuss something that I will absolutely throw hands about, and that's that Michelle Pfeiffer is the most iconic Catwoman portrayal ever across any media. Also, I was 12 when I saw that, and that has an effect on you.
Okay, so I will say that something that's always stuck with me is the crime alley slaying of Barbara and I forget his father's name.
Thomas Wayne
by Joe Cool. Man, there have been some really iconic moments of it, but I will never forget I forget which thing it's in, but I will always remember the pearls
flying off the 1911.
Yeah, I'm like, whoa, man,
that's such a good shot. I will say this, however, to any future Batman filmmakers, we don't need to see that scene again. It's like Order 66 and Star Wars stuff. Okay, I've seen it. I've been traumatized enough. I'm good. I'm fucking good. Which I do caveat that with the Order 66 scenes that were in Obi-Wan Kenobi were really fucking good. God damn it. God damn you, Dave Filoni.
So if you want to talk about an iconic Batman gun, but it's not from a good Batman film, Batman Forever with Jim Carrey and Tommy Lee Jones.
Tommy Lee Jones is Two-Face. I gotta say, Tommy Lee Jones's Two-Face holds up. If you go watch that again, it's actually really good. And apparently he hated Jim Carrey, and that really comes through.
As I have grown, I also hate Jim Carrey as a person.
Same.
Yeah, Jim, ease up. Ease up, dog.
You're running a little hot here, homie.
Yeah, but there's a moment where his all of Two-Face's bad guys is an absolute aesthetic of just like sleeveless leather jackets, skin tight combat pants, knee high boots, but they're wielding Olympic Arm 93 AR pistols that have been converted to full auto. Now, these show up in a couple of different movies, including 2006's Miami Vice remake, in a couple of variations that are pretty cool. But these guys have no stock, 95 round drums. They're Korean drums, but these guys they were like, that doesn't look future retro enough, because they were trying to like copy the weird Art Deco looks with like a little bit more cyberpunky flash.
Mm-hmm.
They put neon on the drums.
Yes.
For no reason.
Because why not?
But I'll never forget those dudes like unloading those things. And I just thought, that's cool. Like I'd really like to go talk to the prop master guys and see how they did that and how they got like working neon on drums that are firing on full auto guns.
I'm looking at a picture of it now, and I now remember how absolutely wild that gun was.
Right, like you gotta give like the bad guys some like a lot of aesthetic credit.
Well, and in that same movie, as I'm now like flashing back to it, Two-Face's pistol was a Benelli 22 long rifle Olympic sport pistol that they chrome plated, and it looks wild.
That shows up in a remake of a movie called La Femme Nikita, the American remake version.
Come on,
right? The remake version is called No Way Out.
Oh, is that the one that just came out on?
No, this came out in the 90s. It's absolutely fantastic. But the gun that they give the girl to do the assassination as her like training exercise in the restaurant is the exact same like chromed out Benelli 22 target pistol, which, you know, if you don't know what it is, looks like a Magnum, just
right. Well, because it's
cyborg killer.
It's got the mag in anything that has the any sort of pistol that has the magazine in front of the grip looks cool, right? And it just looks like something that you're gonna wreck people with. I'm looking for now. I will say this too. There's a VP9 tactical in one of these movies. It's one of the later Batmans, obviously. One of the things, and I actually am someone who likes Batfleck. I felt, and because I felt like the Batfleck was, I have problems with some of Frank Miller's stuff, but I thought that the Frank Miller stuff that he did around old Batman was really good. And the Batfleck draws on a lot of those inspirations, which is why I like the idea of Batman, like that version of Batman murking people with miniguns mounted on the Batmobile, because the logical and I definitely have said this before, maybe even on the show, the logical conclusion of Batman is that he turns into the Punisher at some point. Like that's the only way. Well, not necessarily the Punisher, but
so I think like if you want to discuss this from like a writing standpoint, there's an idea of like what happens when this concept that Batman has tried to make breaks.
Right.
I don't like it. I don't like the concept of old Batman where he kind of snaps and he's like, well, screw it, I'm just going to fill up a graveyard full of bodies.
No.
I like Jason Todd. I like Jason Todd as the Red Hood because he is, one, a representation of Batman's failure, but not the failure of Batman.
Interesting. I largely agree with this. I also liked the one. So where I struggle with the Batfleck versus why I'm okay with it in the Frank Miller books is the Frank Miller books are very clearly predicated on a post-apocalyptic society, almost not truly post-apocalyptic, but it's a society where Superman no longer stands for what Superman stands for and is a pawn of the government, and Batman is sort of at his wit's end, and he doesn't go out of his way to kill people, but he's not reticent about using lethal force anymore.
So I think like there is this idea of like Batman is trying to keep society together.
Right.
And when society like keeps crumbling, he has an escalation of force that's like Batman doesn't kill a mugger. Batman doesn't kill a mobster because he's kind of understood that he creates a power vacuum.
Mhm.
And he's trying to keep it contained, and there is a failure to the premise. But I think when he faces these larger threats, and you put like Batman in Gotham should never pick up a gun.
Right.
Batman, once he's in the Justice League, doesn't pick up a gun because he's like surgically killing people to try and like save the world.
Yeah. Well,
like
and
there's a different level of threat there.
I have also noticed that many fictional interpretations of Batman, including animated ones, will murk aliens like they're.
He's like, not people.
He's like, listen, Batman doesn't kill humans. Fuck you, you green-skinned leather winged.
Right, like if you're wondering like why Batman goes off on Superman, it's because he's not human.
Right. He's like, I can kill you, you're not a person.
Batman got real clear defined laws about shall not kill a person.
Right.
Joe Cool, a human being, killed my parents, and that wasn't cool.
Aliens? Gotta do what you gotta do.
It's the same token as when Superman's like, honestly, Darkseid, thank you. I have never really known what I was capable of, but we're about to find out.
We're gonna throw a whole planet at this guy. Back to the guns bit. I do have to call this out because I am the revolver guy, but you know, the Smith & Wesson combat masterpiece that the Joker has in the 1989 Batman movie, where he pulls out the friggin', you know, the 16-inch barreled revolver. So first off, that's a K-frame, like it's the medium frame revolver. But apparently, apparently the reason why they had to use that is because they didn't have the budget to shoot the original scene, which was that there was a tank hidden inside one of those parade floats, and that's what shot the Batwing down, not a 38 special revolver with a super duper long barrel. So there's a little bit of gun trivia for you. You guys can add that to your repertoire along with, did you know that Viggo Mortensen broke his toe when he kicked that helmet?
I will say, like, another thing that I dig in The Dark Knight as pertains to guns and the Joker is Heath Ledger's Joker is continually upgrading his guns throughout the film.
Yeah, he does, doesn't he?
Like you can always see him swap from like he starts with like Glock 17. He's like, okay, this is cool. Ooh, shotgun. I'm gonna take this now, and he keeps the Glock. It's always the same Glock. He's always got that two-tone 17. Oddly, apparently they use the sound of a minigun to make his sound just like a little bit more crazy. And then later he's got a Smith & Wesson submachine gun. Absolute vibes.
Oh, when he's hanging out of the cop car with the MP-41, the Smith & Wesson subgun, just going. Aah!
Yeah, it's
one of the best scenes.
Oh man, I'm trying to think. Like, is there another?
I've always really enjoyed the fan theory about his Joker, that he is like a dude with PTSD who just went fully and thoroughly around the bend.
Yeah, I when I heard that, I initially was like, I don't really want to hear another fan theory from someone. And then they like, oh, he's an ex-special forces guy who's just lost it. I'm like, oh, that makes so much sense.
Right? You're like, you look at your friend group and you go, so which one of you guys?
I know the guy. I think you do know him. And I'm constantly just like, oh, please no.
Like, don't, like just dial like 2 notches back, homie. Like, do you need to call somebody you know hug? I'll hug you. Don't stab me. I'll hug you.
But like it covers up the why can Joker, who's supposed to be crazy, recruit all these people to do these jobs? Well, because the government trained him to. Like,
and he's really good at it. Well, and that's the other thing too, that you know, when you like the gun stuff.
We know he's not a Navy SEAL because he's not running drugs.
Right, and his hair isn't very good. Anyway, we're not just to do.
We're gonna get in trouble again.
I don't want to get renditioned again. So this one time, you know, it's funny though. Like, if you watch, one of the interesting things when talking about guns and Batman is you can sort of tell the tone and the vibe of a Batman movie by the gun handling, right? Like if you look at the first, the first two with Keaton, the guns are serious, but kind of like everything's a little bit over the top, right? Then you get into like the Batman Forever and the one with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and it's all cartoonish and comical.
Yeah.
And then you go around to the Dark Knight, the Dark Knight trilogy, and the gun handling is very realistic. It's very, it's what you would expect from a world where Batman exists, but is kind of the only superhero, quote unquote. And then, when you talk about the Batfleck movies, it's back to being over the top, but it's over the top with real guns because we're in a world with Superman and Wonder Woman and all of these other things. And then there's really not a lot of, other than there's not nearly as much gun stuff in the Batman as there was in previous movies. But I thought the stuff that was in it was really well done.
I think it really does, like, I think it shows, like, one, most of it is like cops and gangsters. And one, I'm a big fan of the Batman. I'm probably going to watch it tonight while I make Thanksgiving stuff. Now that we've been talking about it. But the Scarecrow rendition and the guns he chooses are very scary to me. Like, that's purpose driven. Like,
well, it's also scary because we know some guy who's got, $700 laying around to buy guns that aren't high end, but also has a manifesto. I do remember some of the angry Reddit backlash about that. It's like, well, they're making this, those incel guys aren't really real, and I'm like, hi.
Oh no, they are real. They are a threat.
Yeah, like, they are actually a threat.
If you identify this way, I identify you as a threat.
Yeah. I identify you as a target.
If you believe your crazy internet rambling stuff, I promise you're going to turn out looking like that dude from Dallas.
Do you have a manifesto about how all women are bitches? Here, would you hold this? What is it? It's an IR strobe. I'm going to be over there.
Yeah, no.
I'm not saying that we should drone incels, but we should drone incels.
And get stomped in the face. You know what? If you are one of these people, there is no Batman. He is not coming to, like, beat you up a little bit and hand you over. It will be the citizens of the world around you who beat the ever living crap out of you.
They'll probably kill you because they're more Jim Gordon than Batman.
If you're lucky. If you're lucky.
If you're lucky, it will be someone like Jack who will just shoot you in the face.
Right. If not, you're going to prison, where it'll be, I really want to get this through. You will not be a martyr to the cause.
Yeah.
You'll be an unmistakable smear.
You'll be currency.
Yeah. You're not a name. And that's one of the things that I kind of wish what they had done in Batman, I wish they had killed him. I wish they had killed the Scarecrow. I know why they didn't. I understand, like, there's a design here for a continuing world, but no, I would have been much happier as a person who lives in a world where there are crazy people who do crazy things, if they had shown what the end result is. That
that would have bwant fantastic. And let's not end the episode on that note, and let's just go back real quick to, I want to again go back and end this episode on a note where we both think about our favorite moments from Batman the Animated Series.
Already have it, but go ahead.
No, you go, because I have to pick. There's a lot.
It is a two-parter episode where they go back to Japan, and Batman's ninjutsu master has been holding on to the secret of a technique to kill a man by touch, and Batman has, like, an old school ninja rival. And they have a ninja duel on a volcano. Why? Brain?
Volcano, really?
And spoiler alert, Batman's, rival gets a hold of the technique and learns how to do it. And Batman figures out that he knows how to do it and wears a padded plate
Oh
on his
yeah.
chest in a straight up throwback to spaghetti westerns, which is really cool
They
because
did
a
a
lot
lot
of
of that.
right, well, because a lot of spaghetti westerns are actually throwbacks to Kurosawa films. They basically do a Batman the Animated Series Kurosawa film where they do a throwback to spaghetti western. And as an adult, it's a great setup. As a kid, I absolutely loved it. I'm gonna look up the name of it real
I
fast.
know which one you're talking about. That will take me to my favorite Batman, and it's interestingly, it's the last one of the Batman the Animated Series. It was aired 1995, and it's The Lion and the Unicorn. And that's the one where Red Claw takes Alfred prisoner and is like trying to torture him to get like some access code that he knows because Alfred used to be a super secret agent and stuff like that. And it's just a really, really good episode. And I'm always a fan of Batman stuff that showcases how cool the supporting cast is, right? Like how cool Jim Gordon is and how cool Alfred is. And Alfred in that show was great. And just and if you haven't seen it, I won't spoil it, but I'll tell you guys this: all of the Batman animated series is on HBO Max. So if you have HBO Max, you can go stream every episode. If you have a little boy or girl that's in the age band from like 8 to 12, watch it with them. Like watch this with your kids, and I promise you, you will not be disappointed. Hopefully they like it, but you'll probably like it.
It's a fantastic
It's
show.
it's a great show. And that's it for this week, guys. The disembodied voice of Keith will hopefully turn back into a full person next week. Um and yeah, we will see you guys in a week, and we promise not to kill any more of your childhood heroes.